Welcome back to the channel, Exiles. In this week's video we are presenting the Smith of Kitava completely min-maxed version of Ancestral Totems. We've done everything we could to make this build as strong as possible so it will crush Pinnacle content as well as be a great mapper. As always, this video will have neat little sections in the timeline below where you can pick and choose whatever you want to watch. First, a showcase of the build and what it's capable of. And after that, we're going to dive right into what makes this build tick. This is going to be a banger, guys. Let's go.
Beware the scorpion's sting. This battle is
Ancestors! My service is finally over. I have passed your tests. This is over. And my service continues.
3 hours later.
Okay guys, I hope the last part of that showcase showed you guys very clearly why we went for Ancestral Totem over the Shockwave Totem that I was planning to make. Now don't get me wrong, Shockwave Totem is still an excellent mapper. It's actually a little bit smoother than the Sunder Totems, as it always has been. It just lacks serious Pinnacle damage, something this version doesn't have any issues with. Now when I say this version, there are two different versions. We've got the Ultra Minmax and we've got the quote-unquote normal Minmax. Both of these versions are not cheap. These versions are meant as a huge step up from the Artillery Ballista guide that we've placed on the YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago. If you are on a budget and you're looking for a great mapper with bossing potential, that guide is for you. If you've already min-maxed your Artillery Ballista build completely and you're looking for the strongest possible totem setup that 0.2.0 can offer, this is the build for you. Let's take a look at the difference between those two versions. There isn't much of a difference, except you're going to be looking for an Idol of Uldren with a +1 to level of all skills corruption. Now that corruption is ridiculously rare, but the reason we go for that corruption is the Idol of Uldren gives you +1 limit to totems, meaning a 4th totem without overabundance. Basically, 33% more damage and coverage, but there's no skills on it. So you're gonna need +1 to the level of all skills on here, and +1 to the level of all skills here, plus all the other ways we do skill scaling to still have your Ancestral Warrior totem at level 40. So now, same level, but an additional totem between these two items. Now this is gonna be rough to get, and this is just a window of opportunity, a window of possibility. But what you're going to be looking for if you cannot get this combo is a Leopold's Applause with damage penetrates 15% fire res, because we will need to get to that 125%, more about that in a little bit, and a amulet like this, where you're gonna go for high life, +3 to all melee, to all attributes is probably the most favorable here because we need Dex, Int and Strength, and we're gonna go for fire res if you can find it. Rough amulet to get, but very much more so possible than it is to get this one, I think. As always, this video is accompanied by a Path of Building link, wherein you're going to have all the skills, all the items, and all the nodes that you need to make this work. But on the contrary to other guides, we have also started posting on Mobalytics now. And as you guys can see, I've prepared a guide for you with all the information that you know and love on the Mobalytics site. If there's anything missing in here, guys, let me know and I will add it to the Mobalytics page. Let me know in the comment section if there's something you'd like to see in here. Let's get back to the build. Alright guys, let's dive into the build and exactly what it is that makes this build tick. Special thanks to Shocky for the idea with the Idol of Uldren for the Ultra Minmax, and thanks to Ares for all the help he's given me building this build as well. Let's take a bit of a look at the tree, and let's take a little bit of a look at how this build differs from previous totem builds. As you guys can see, we are using Avatar of Fire. Now, Avatar of Fire has a bit of a problem where we are losing 25% of that physical damage, right? Because only 75% of damage gets converted to fire damage. But we make up for that, and then some, by not just having 260% increased elemental damage with attacks, a mod that we cannot get for physical damage on our weapons, right? There are physical damage mods, but not global physical damage mods on there. So by going the elemental route, these two modifiers actually add damage. That is nice, but where this really takes off is Leopold's Applause. You've seen me use this in the Artillery Ballista build guide from 2 weeks ago. And the idea here is that we penetrate elemental resistances down to a minimum of -50%. Now somebody very adequately under the last video told me, but Larry, you're only pushing it down 55-60%. What about enemies that have 75% fire res, like tier 4 Xesht? And he's absolutely right. The counter argument to that is that only those Pinnacle bosses usually have that much resistances, but hey, why not just get down to 125% so we can negate all that? The way we do that is we are getting Pen over here, Pen over here. We have Jewels with Pen, something like this, damage penetrates 10% fire resistance. We've got one here, 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 and here. We've got Pen over here, and we are using Solar Orb with exposure and flammability to hit that 125%. If we click on the Solar Orb, it's probably easy to show. You're gonna see a fire resistance ban of 80%. On top of that, we have the exposure, which is 20, that puts us at 100%, and the curse 26% at 126%, giving us that -50 breakpoint and a little bit extra to boot. So by penetrating those resistances to -50%, we have an incredible damage increase that we just cannot get when we are playing a physical damage build. This is why I believe this version of Totems to be the strongest route that we can go, and physical sadly just doesn't keep up anymore. A couple of other things you might have noticed in the showcase footage is the difference between using Sunder and Rolling Slam. As a rule, you won't have to worry about that at all. If you have the 4 totem setup with Sunder, you won't need to change the Rolling Slam for bosses or anything like that. The only reason you're going to change for Rolling Slam is if you're doing Pinnacle content, because the damage on that is silly. So let's take a little bit of a look quickly at the numbers here. It is 147,000 on the wave, and it's 59k on the Shockwave. So looking at about a combined damage of 200,000 there. We gotta obviously account for the attack time, but you know, just take a look at those numbers. And if we swap it over for Rolling Slam, you see the Rolling Slam first slam actually is at 80k and the second slam is at 160k. So that's 230,000 damage. Just average damage per use, not calculating anything like pen or anything like that. So this is why we swap over to Rolling Slam for those bigger bosses, the Pinnacle content, and it will absolutely annihilate it. Now we're going to do a quick overview of the items, and like I said guys, this is a min-max build, so all these items are going to be pretty high up there. So what we're looking for here guys is a hammer with +7 to the level of all melee skills. If we can get strength on there, that is absolutely amazing. You want to have the lowest possible strength requirement. I would say go up to 110, which turns it into a 330 strength requirement item with Giant's Blood. And make sure you have high increased elemental damage with attacks on there. The flat damage types that you see on there, such as fire damage and lightning damage, really don't do much for us other than when we leap slam. So high fire damage would still be nice. So you can just pretty much leap slam small packs to death, as you guys have seen in the showcase footage as well. Not mandatory, but you know, if you can get it on there or it happens to be on there, definitely go for that. If you have the stones to do it, you could hit it with a Omen of Corruption and hit it with a Valorb like I did, and you might very well get that third socket, or you might break it. Only do this if you have the currency to replace the item, obviously. The other hammer, exactly the same thing guys. It has that little bit of fire damage on there. I would like to see it a little higher, just on the leap slam kills, but it is what it is. +7 melee, high elemental damage with attacks. The attack speed doesn't do much for us. Now there is a bit of a debate going on about the runes or the cost that we put in there. We can put skill speed in there, which is alacrity, or C2 quadrilateral, whatever the hell it's called, cores, for 30% elemental damage per core. If you put the cores in there, you will have a slightly higher DPS output in PoB and for Pinnacle content, but it will feel a bit more sluggish when you are running through the maps, because your totems will have a little bit more delay between placement and actually attacking. Especially with Sunder, I think skill speed is the play to have the smoothest possible mapping experience. For your armor guys, nothing changes from the Artillery Ballista. What we're going to be looking for here is a superior ornate plate, highest possible armor that we can get on there, and we want that 2.4 plus of maximum life regenerated per second, which is an implicit inherent to the ornate plate itself. On top of that guys, if you can corrupt it and you can get that third socket on there, you're gonna be a happy camper, because we're gonna be putting life cores on there, G-Quani, whatever it's called, increased maximum life, soul cores, in as many places as we can. For the helmet guys, we're going to go for the deepest tower. Now this thing is kind of meta right now, and you can see why, because what it does is the enemies in your presence count as being on low life. Now what that means is not that they will actually be at 50% life now or 30% life now or less, no, but it simply counts as that. And that means we can abuse a node cluster like this. Enemies low life, increase damage, damage. And same for this cluster over here. It's a lot, it's like 400% or something like that. Absolutely amazing amount of extra damage. But how do we know what the radius is of our presence? Now, the thing is, presence, it says, if we point at it and we alt, we can see, right? It says presence is around the character and it's by default a 4 meter radius. But guys, if we have the 50% reduced presence radius, that doesn't leave much of a radius, does it? Which is also why all of our jewels will have presence area of effect on top of the damage pen and the life regeneration rate. All this information, guys, is in the written guides. It's in both the PoB and the Mobalytics. So if this is a little too chaotic for you guys to keep up with, just check the written guides. It is all in there for you. But this is why we are using the deepest tower. For rings, guys, I highly recommend you go for either a amethyst ring base to squeeze out a little bit of that chaos res, or for a ruby ring base for an insane amount of fire resistance. Because just like the last time that I showed you guys, you want to be at 200% fire res to get 89, 90, 90, or you want to be at 240 for 90, 90, 90. For me personally, not worth the extra investment for the 10% fire damage taken, but if that is what you want to do, you could go that route. Other things on the rings to look for, guys, is the flat fire damage to attacks. It might not seem like that's a lot of extra power, but it is. Skills got a pretty heavy nerf this 0.2.0, so their flat damage is kind of right? It's not that great as it was last league. So by adding flat damage through your rings, you're going to have quite a bit of extra damage output on your totems as well. Don't underestimate that stat, guys. Other than that, you're going to be looking for maximum life, and either stats such as strength, dex, int, depending on what you need to make your gear work, and obviously high fire res to get to that 200% that we just talked about. The other ring, same story, guys. Chaos res, fire res, cold is a bit of a wasted slot here. I would like to see chaos res on there, but you know. For your boots, we're going to be looking for the highest possible movement speed that we could get. Pretty much boots like these would be absolutely amazing if I could get 35% on there and a double socket corrupt, but haven't been lucky with that just yet. Once again, we are looking for high amounts of life, fire res, chaos res if we can, and in my case I went for intelligence on here because we need 83 int to make Leopold's applause work. So if we can get it on our gear, we don't need to get it on our tree. For the belt, guys, make sure you have a minimum of 2 charm slots. The reason why is we want to abuse rage, right? We want to have that Nagamahu, something like that. Ruby charm active, so we have the maximum rage on you. So a second charm slot is very nice to have on your belt if you can get that on there. Super nice. Get yourself high maximum life on there, a little bit of armor if you can get it. Get yourself some strength on there. In my case, I had to go for some lightning res because you can see it's rather low. So without that lightning res, I wouldn't be capped anymore. And obviously if you can get a corruption on there, such as strength, dex, int, fire res, or even max fire res, that would be amazing, because +1 max fire res would solve that 205 to 240 fire res needed issue. We've already went over the rest of the gear. For the flask, guys, just get something that gives you the most possible life recovery that you can get, because we have a relatively low life pool compared to last league, so these flasks actually do their job quite well. We've just went over jewels, but really quickly, like I said, life regeneration rate, presence area of effect, damage penetrates, resistances. For a 4th mod, if you can get it, I'd be looking at totem placement speed or skill effect duration. Very nice to get, but those 3 mods that I just explained, the top 3 are the ones you're looking for. And the one unique jewel that we're going to be using is a Prism of Belief. Now, this is Ultra Minmax. If you cannot afford a +3, get a +2 or a +1 and so forth, but you know, this is what gets you to that level 40 with the gear that we have equipped. A couple of important notes, guys. This one is as much as 2 gem levels. We're looking at 12% as extra. That is a definite, really big damage increase. So yes, it's a bit of a traveling route to go, but it's probably the single biggest damage increase note there is. Thanks to Turtle for that. He pointed me. Other than that, guys, we are using a very similar tree to the Artillery Ballista. And what we're looking for here is life regeneration rate, Make no mistake, do not go for something like this, because we already have 5% from our ascendancy and we have 2.48% on our armor. So we want regeneration rate percentage. That's why we have that here and here. The low life tag, like we just explained, here and here, meaning enemies on low life will take a lot extra damage. The typical totem stuff over here, here and here. And then obviously we're looking for damage penetrates resistances here and here. Other than that, we will be taking Resolute Technique again, so our hits cannot be evaded, and we're going to be taking Avatar Fire for that conversion. And the other things, guys, are just the Giant Blood, obviously to make the two weapons happen. It is going to be your Unnatural Resilience to get all those max resistances as high as possible, coupled with Prism Guard. Now, if, for some miraculous reason, you can find a belt like this that has +3 to maximum fire resistance corruption, you may not need these nodes. Just know that is going to be a hard belt to find, but it's possible, theoretically. Next up, let's take a look at the skills that we're using. First and foremost, we are still using the same quadrilla we were using with the Artillery Ballista Totem build. It has Haste Aura and all damage shocks. Now, we cannot fish for such a quadrilla anymore due to nerfs to the Haste Aura not spawning on that quadrilla, at least in the jungle where I was fishing for it, but there are other beasts out there that will have it. But your most important thing here, guys, is going to be the all damage shocks. That combined with Overcharge and the Voltaic Mark brings our enemies to a shock level of 43% shocked, which is really damn good. On top of that, we have Elemental Army, we have Last Gasp, so it stays alive a little longer or persists after it died, so that little Haste Aura gives us just a little bit longer of a duration between the enemy's death and actual disappearance. And we have Meat Shield, so it takes less damage. For the Ancestral Warrior Totem, we have the level 21 Ancestral Warrior Totem with 5 sockets. This is for min-max, you can go for a 20-20 just fine. We're going to put Sunder in there, we're going to put in there Execute, because the whole low life tag that we've showed in the previous section means that enemies are always on low life, so 50% more damage is a lot of extra damage, is the single strongest support that we can get. On top of that, we're going to be using Fire Infusion, 25% of damage is extra fire damage. We're going to be using Primal Armament. This does not work for Shockwave Totem, but it does work for the Ancestral Warrior Totems. And we're going to be using Elemental Focus. Now, if for some reason you feel you need a little bit more clear, you could change out your Elemental Focus for Upheaval while you are mapping, but realistically, especially if you have 4 totems, you're probably not going to be needing to do that. Voltaic Mark, like I just explained, to increase the power of the shock of the quadrilla. Time of Need, the highest possible level that we can get, 620 life, and removal of curses and elemental ailments. Pretty nice to have Vitality linked to that for that extra regen, and Fast Forward to have a less skill effect duration of that delay. Now, 628 life doesn't seem like it's a lot, but compared to the life pool of just 3.3k, something like that, which is a lot lower than last league, this is a pretty significant increase in life while you're spamming your totems. Definitely nice to have. For Solar Orb, guys, we are using Arcane Tempo, so we have a faster casting of the skill itself. We have a maximum of 2 Solar Orbs active at one time. As you can see, those pulses are pretty damn quick, also fastened by the skill speed runes in our weapon. We are linking that to Fire Exposure to get that 20% down. We are using Magnified Effect for that increased area of effect. We are using Font of Blood for the extra regeneration, as you guys can see once we put this up. We are a regen of 929 at bosses, which is almost a third of your life pool. Absolutely wild. And we're using Ignition, so we have 100% more chance to ignite. Because in order for us to get fire exposure on the enemy, we have to actually ignite them. On top of that, guys, we are using Flammability with Fire Mastery for an additional level. Doesn't seem to be doing anything, it's still minus 26, but maybe there's some breakpoint there that you guys can figure out. And we have the Cursed Ground, so it is always active when the enemy is on top of it. Especially Pinnacle content tends to be in the same location except for Arbiter. So then we're using Leap Slam, and I'm using that with Persistence and Holy Descent. Now the Holy Descent gives Consecrated Ground, which is lengthened by Persistence, and the combination of the Consecrated Ground with the Solar Orb, which is going to be nice in things like Simulacrum for instance, is you can jump, put the orb down, and then you're looking at 1300 life recovered per second. So that is a huge amount of regen in situations where you can't really get one shot, but you want that sustain versus the death by 1,000 cuts outcome. On top of that, guys, we are using Martial Tempo so we can do it faster. Jagged Ground, if we can put a Jagged Ground on there and the totems hit it, it's just a little bit extra damage, not a lot, but hey, why not? This would be the one I would drop if it's a 5-link, and we are using Momentum, because we are actually killing little packs with the Leap Slam as well. For the Shockwave Totem, guys, please check the PoB and the Mobalytics written guide as to what you would go for there if you decide to go for Shockwave Totem over the Ancestral Warrior Totem. It is possible to do that, but it's only going to be a really good mapper. You really will not have the damage for Pinnacle content as we've shown in the video showcase. Alright guys, really quickly into the PoB, the configuration and the things that we've changed. We are always on full life, because with the amount of regen we have, placing totems will usually happen at full life. As you can see, slightly more damage because of the anointment that we have on the amulet. Is the enemy on low life? This is showing you exactly what the deepest tower does. Now look at that for a damage increase, right? That is a huge damage increase. So the enemy is on low life due to deepest tower. Shock is at 43%. This is why we do that. That's a huge amount of extra damage as well. And we have rage through our charm. So this is a lot of extra power. Over here you can see we manually added the plus maximum 5 cold res and 5 maximum lightning res, because for some reason it is not showing that here as we see in game over here. So I had to manually put that in there. Other than that, guys, you can see right over here what we've done. We have the charm charges gained, we have the elemental ailment threshold, we have life recovery from flasks. Usually you'd say that's kind of but life recovery from flask with the lower life pool that we have relatively to the amount of life that we gain from our flasks, that is a nice little bonus. And obviously we take that extra chaos res, which is really expensive to get on the gear pieces. And this is pretty much it for the configuration and the changes that we made in order to reflect the amount of damage that we have. Now here's the thing, guys. Ultra Minmax has a full DPS of about 1.5 million. Now that might seem a little bit of an exaggeration, but you can look back at the Xesht showcase and see the millions fly off his life. So it is literally that amount of damage on Sunder. Now once we go for Rolling Slam, I can show you guys that as well. You just go Ancestral Warrior Totem and change the Sunder to Rolling Slam. And with the Rolling Slam 21, what we can do here is we go Rolling Slam, second slam, and just on the second slam, full DPS 1.7 million, and we have the first slam as well, which is 800, let's say 900,000. So between these two, you're looking at 2.6, 2.7 million damage per second. And if you look at the Xesht footage and how we killed Xesht and how long it took, that pretty much corresponds with that 2.5 million damage per second. It is absolutely insane. So for yourself, if you want to just check things out, you can just change the configurations the way we have here. But there's another problem. For some reason, the totem and the damage that totem does not get reflected in PoB. PoB looks at the damage on your weapons. So I had to create custom weapons, which I called Larry's Hammer. And this is pretty much to simulate damage, which is 50% of the physical damage of your skill. So if you're thinking, what the hell is going on here and why did he make it like that? Let me show you guys. It is the skill itself, which is the physical damage that the totem gives, which is 460 to 690. And if we divide that by 2, because we have 2 of those hammers, that is 230 to 345. As you can see, 230 to 345. On top of that, I've added 133% elemental damage with attacks. And as you can see, we have one with 137 and one with 130, averaging 133.5, which is why I went for 133 there. I was running the elemental damage Shito Quad Lotl, whatever it's called, course before, which is why you see over here on these hammers 90% increased elemental damage with attacks. You could put skill speed in there, like I have it now, and see the differences in damages as well. Just know that when you look at this, that is why there is a Larry hammer in there. It's pretty much a simulation for what we are looking at in game and in order to simulate the damage. So that's the oddities in the PoB and the reason that is set up the way it is set up. On top of that, you can also check the differences between the Ultra Minmax and the normal Minmax. In order for you to do that, you change the Idol of Uldern to the amulet that we've shown in the skill planner on Mobalytics as well, this one. And you change the Leopold's gloves +1 to the level of all melee skills to the 15% ban. Now, in doing so, you can remove this for the extra attack speed, because we just added 15% ban, so it gives you a little bit extra attack speed. And this is what you'd be looking at. Now keep in mind, if you don't have the Ultra Minmax, you have one less totem, so you also need to change the count, and this is what you'll be looking at. So there is a bit of a damage loss for sure between the Ultra Minmax and the normal Minmax, but it's kind of nice to see that you can just manually change these things over inside that PoB. It's going to give you a very clear view of what's actually going on and how much damage you actually have. All this information will not be visible in Mobalytics, the damage and all that kind of stuff, so some things might be better to check the PoB, and for a good oversight and to have everything nice and structured, Mobalytics is definitely the place to be. Alright guys, if you're still here, thank you very much for watching. You guys are troopers. It's been a lot of work testing all these different variations out of the build. I really tried to make the Shockwave Totem work. I think this is a good compromise. If you feel something's missing from this guide, please let me know under the YouTube video and I will change it in the Mobalytics and the PoB guide. For now, thank you all very much and I will catch you guys on the next one.